At the start of the year, I wanted to make multiplayer games, but because I'm bad at networking, I had to relearn the basics. So, I made a game on Roblox with next to no prior knowledge on how to use Roblox Studio. Was it a good idea? Well... I started the clock at May and set my deadline at the end of the month. While I didn't really finish development on time, I only extended by a week, so I guess it still counts. For this project, the goal was to make a simple incremental game where players need to collect coins to unlock areas that have better coins. And because I have no artistic skills, I plan to make the game look simple. But before any actual development started, I first wanted to do a dry run to learn Roblox's workflow. So, I did some searching and found some sources online. I watched this guy's course, and it's a pretty good jumping point. After watching his beginner series, I realized that this actually might be easy. The thing is, you need to learn a bit more of how data is passed around and some Roblox quirks, which I'll explain later on. Alongside watching some of his videos on the advanced course, I messed around with Lua, Roblox's programming language, and wrote some basic code. I also played around with the building tool, which was just playing around with Legos. It was pretty cool. So, for the entire first week, I just played around with Roblox's tools. And here's the outcome of this practice project. For the second week, I started developing the actual project. Because I wanted to make a game about players just collecting coins and upgrading their abilities to collect more of them, I had to make a system that handles the amount of coins that a player has. Normally, you just make a simple script attached to the player containing a variable for that amount. However, because we'd have more than one player, we have to make it so that each player will have a unique variable representing that amount. To answer this problem, we use dictionaries, or what Roblox calls tables. Tables are essentially like a group of padlocks. Each one would have a unique key assigned to them. So we make a player's unique ID represent a key to a padlock, which in this case is the amount of coins that they would have. After I finished that, I then had to handle how the coins would spawn. In networking, there are these things called client-side and server-side. In short, client-side refers to the computer a player is using, and server-side is the computer that acts like a bridge between players. To avoid exploits, we have to ensure that all important systems, calculations, and data are handled by the server. And we should implement client-side solutions on systems that don't critically affect the gameplay, such as HUDs, GUI, particles, just to name a few. To pass around values that belong to the server, I use these things called remote signals. These are two-way events that can pass around a value given a parameter when invoked. So I made my coin collecting system work by attaching a server script to the coins which allows their behavior to be synced to all players. When a player touches a coin, the amount of coins they'll have will then trigger a remote event in which the client script of player has its coin amount variable updated. Because the remote event is also connected to a UI component, the HUD also updates. Was this implementation secure? No, and I don't care. To make the coins be able to be spawned by the server, we use these things called server storage. In short, Roblox has these things called storages, which replicate all the assets to a server or client that's contained within the folder. There are two types, server storage and client storage. The first type will have all the assets contained within it be replicated to the server. The second type will have all the assets within it be replicated to all players. So that the coins can be spawned by a server-side script, we make them accessible by putting them under server storage. If we put them under the client storage, then the server script won't be able to access them. I also mess around with Roblox's GUI system. But it was kind of annoying to know that they don't have a built-in UI resizing system when they support so many platforms. Fortunately, there was a plugin for it, so there's that. And that's the end of the second week. Now the thing with game development is that when you initially start out a project, you try to develop your features as fast as possible to have more time for reiterations. The common pitfall when doing this step is that you're more likely to haphazardly implement these, and as a result, you end up with a jank system. Because I got too caught up with implementing features using tools I didn't really know that much, the project got to a point where managing different components became a headache. The third week is where I almost stopped developing the project. Fortunately, I just browsed the Roblox developer forums and quickly directed my project into a slightly better path. I ditched adding a shop system to make my life easier and focused on completing the core gameplay of collecting coins to unlock more areas. Also, I added a simple dialogue system. While this week was me mostly being frustrated with implementing more features, it was worth it, because the next week would just be me doing one of the less technical sides of the entire project. Now, for this week. Because most systems were already made, I just needed to design the environment. During the planning stage, I wanted the project to be set in an archipelago where you need to earn a set amount of coins to travel to the next island. But because I didn't want to spend another month on development, I had to think of another idea. So, instead of thinking that the player should travel horizontally, they'd need to do it vertically. So, the gameplay loop is that the player will collect coins, talk to this guy for upgrades, and then you get to jump higher per upgrade. I also did a quick rebirth system that multiplies the value of the coins you collect and a level cap for replayability. I also made some music for the game, and admittedly, they're pretty bad, but I didn't want to spend too much time on this project. Here's a quick sample for all of them. I made it so that this will play when you reach a certain height. Initially, I used Roblox's touch events but found out that it was too inconsistent. I just used an external plugin and it worked out of the box. And that's all I did for the fourth week. To be honest, at this point, I just wanted to be done with the project. After spending at least a day or two doing nothing, I crammed in some last-minute content such as NPCs and dialogue, and before publishing the game, I had to make a poster, logo, and icon, all of which were pretty simple to make. After all that, I made the trailer for the game, and here's the result.
Wanna play?
So that's basically how I made a game in Roblox from scratch in roughly a month. So, what were my takeaways? First of all, to answer the main question, was it worth it to learn Roblox Studio? Personally, I think it is so and so. While I do think that Roblox provides developers with enough tools to make a decent product, the platform is oversaturated and mostly caters to a younger audience, which severely limits what types of games you can make and earn from. Another thing is that I didn't really expect that Roblox has a fairly powerful engine to build games on. The part that impressed me was how intuitive making a game environment was. The networking part isn't really that much of a hassle as long as you take your time with understanding how each of Roblox's built-in component works, but that's more of a general rule in development than a problem specific to Roblox. And finally, I think that Roblox Studio is a pretty good place to start if you want to make simple multiplayer games. Albeit the games you could make with the engine would be severely limited when compared to using other game engines as a starting point. Overall, while I think that Roblox has a slightly different workflow compared to other conventional game engines such as Godot, Unity, and Unreal Engine, it's mostly the same except for the whole networking part. If you enjoyed this video and want to help me out, you can check out my games on itch, or you could also subscribe to my channel. Either way, they both help me significantly, and that's all.